And so we have topics of separation, and I heard several echoes that would be that you're also really interested in talking about that, about the funding stability of ECFE in the state, and kind of what we can do about it. And Crystal's question too about ideas for revamping their curricula and topics and book studies, and any, you know, new ideas or things like that that you can recommend to her. So should we start with the separation topic? All right. So Abby, I'm going to turn it back to you just for a moment. If you would restate kind of what your observations are that is sort of creating this interest around talking about separation in your program.
So the class that we're struggling with, we have a large Spanish population. And then we have a family from Ukraine. So there's like some other factors in there that I don't know if that's the struggle, or, but then I think like Kelly said, it's like one stays and then it's like a pattern. So, or one cries and then they all cry, and then there's moms going back and forth or dads. And the early childhood teacher is struggling because it's kind of throwing them off in her room. And then in my room, I've got like crying babies being held by their parents, or people getting up, sitting down, getting up, going to the room, coming, you know, it's just like, it's very distracting. And so she's on the other side of me, but we were just wondering what other people suggest, because we really haven't had a ton of issues with this. Yeah, so I don't know.
Abby, what age are the kiddos?
0 to 5.
Oh, okay. It's a big,
yeah.
It's a mix.
I think those are
Yeah.
struggling with are like.
Yeah, like the 3-year-old, 2 or 3-year-olds are struggling the most.
So I do have a bunch of thoughts on this one. I feel for you, first of all. I've had groups that have really struggled with this, and what I think for me and for our groups that has been the most helpful thing, I share a slide with a couple pictures on it and explain the difference between calm and calming. That it is okay for our kids to be crying, and we really, so I might just encourage anyone who's in this scenario to address it to the whole group and spend some time on it, and say, this is hard, but I kind of wonder if the parents exacerbate it for the kids, because they actually, it's my belief, they get in the way of some of the work that can be happening, not if the child cries, but when. So we talk about that because they're establishing a new relationship in a new environment. And so when the child cries, the work that has to happen is they're getting questions answered. How will I be nurtured here? Will I be nurtured here? Who will nurture me here? And we have to establish a relationship and a pattern. And so if the parents do go back, it's coming from a beautiful place in their hearts. I think they are feeling, because they can hear it, like you're saying, you know, they're next door and they can hear it. They are, you know, they're escalated too, because they're hearing their little one cry. And so the question that we really have to get down to is it okay for their little one to cry? And so here in our district, we talk about the threshold of what the children's teachers will allow and make agreements with the parents, but the children's teachers are good with the crying, and they'll, if the child is calming, in other words, they cry and they can hear what the children's teacher is saying, and then they cry some more, and then they read a book, and then they cry some more, and then they, you know, the children's teacher sits next to them, or whatever it is, whether they want to be picked up or sat next to. If they can cry the whole session, but they can take those reprieves, they are doing the hard work of calming, right, and establishing this relationship. If they're crying so hard that they cannot take a reprieve, and that goes on for like 3 or 4 minutes, they will call the family back. And so with that understanding and knowing what the family is comfortable with, like, can we go 3 minutes? Can we go 4 minutes? What do we want to see happen? We get some agreements from the parents, and we honor, like, this, we know this is painful. This is really hard for you. But we encourage them to sit tight. And when it happens, when they can hear them, like, I literally make eye contact, you know, and if it's you, Abby, I'm going to say, Abby, I've got you. like, I've got you, I'm holding you. I hear it too. I've got you, and we're okay here in this space, knowing that they have your little one and they are going to call you if that calming isn't happening. And so getting them comfortable with their child crying and the difference between calm and calming typically is what's gotten us over the hurdle, because I also hear what you're saying, like one cries and then it creates an avalanche. More kiddos get upset because they're kind of questioning, like, well, wait a minute, is this really upsetting? And now I'm feeling it too, that you're right there, those kind of mirror neurons are going off. But I would really encourage a conversation around the difference between calm and calming, and making some agreements about not going back. We've got some things that we're going to encourage. And for the parents, we have fidgets on the table. We just lay it right out, like, I'm hearing it too. And I know, like, we are very clear, the PEs, about, we know they've got your little one. And then having conversation each week about what that calming looked like, because my guess is that it will persist for another week or two, but as the parents stop doing that, and kind of resetting it for everybody, I think it's going to get better. That's my anticipation. If the parents make an agreement to allow their kids to go through the process, and I can imagine too, lots of different cultures and lots of different experiences. There might be trauma there, right? And being in a new setting, it's really common that we hear, my child doesn't speak the language, but many of our kiddos simply don't understand yet, right? It's still about the relationship that we're going to establish and what happens when their little one cries, not if.
Thank you. That is really helpful. And then we have parents that'll say, like, do you want me to stay with you today? It's like, no, don't give them that option. They're not deciding this, you are, which is just a whole nother thing, but that's helpful. Maybe I think that's a good idea to just talk about it and be really upfront, because it's like, they're not getting the full ECFE experience. Their child isn't, getting what they deserve from ECFE. They're not getting what they deserve from ECFE. So I like explaining it like that. Thank you very much.
We've also had luck with deciding for our groups that we're not going to go back and forth. If the child educator decides, okay, we've got a kiddo who's not, as Nikki described it, able to get that reprieve, and it's time to give a call into the parent ed room, we are lucky because there's another room buffer in between us, which helps a lot. But anyway, if we get a call, then we all go back. And of course, that often means, me as the parent educator, like, okay, well, we don't do that lesson today. We just have, little side conversations back in the children's room. But we've found that in the long run, pretty quickly, helps turn it over, because the back and forth makes other kids kind of confused of, like, where's my mom? And then we're gone again. And there's just, so that's something that we've also kind of put in place for our classes.
So Abby, when I observed a toddler classes in Minneapolis, ECFE, I remember, gosh, they suffered so badly of separation. So those children, those families, they are local American families. They didn't have language difficulty or any barriers, but they had really extreme difficulty. That was a very special group, and the teacher had no idea why that group suffered that much. And I remember what they did was, I do not know if your district will be able to support you in this way. So they had extra sub came to the early childhood class, so they had the early the educators, the early child educator, and then they had additional sub for that class to help to transfer. I mean, that was helpful. Like one more teacher, at least two teachers in the room, right? So
Yeah.
that was helpful. Yeah, I wonder if and I agree with you. I mean, this culture and family, family culture, right? So I remember also another in St. Paul, another classroom that boy was 4-year-old, 3-4-year-old, but he didn't speak the language. And when he was at home, most of the time he was with his grandma. And then he went to the site with his dad. And that was already a difficulty for him, right? And then leave him in the room with, so just completely disaster to him. So he was just like running to the door, not knocking the door, just like he was in prison, right? So, and I could see, like this boy didn't have any training on independence, like his grandma really, really nurtured him in old ways, just not giving him opportunity to practice independence, I guess. So I mean, when Nick is talking about this, I just see reviewing those situations in my mind. I really feel, God, it must be very hard for you and your a child educator. I just feel that for you.
I really appreciate listening to Nikki, listening to all of you, the approach, because I put myself in the parent's situation, right? And at that time, especially with a loud child, right? You have these conflicting emotions, none of them good, of pain. So you hurt with your child, right? And judgment, because it's not like the kid is, I don't know. I mean, but they're disruptive, right? They're making a noise. They're disrupting other people. And so we're also conditioned to want to apologize or want to, like reduce. We want to address our kids' pain, but we also want to reduce this annoyance to other people. We just want it to end, right? And then the third thing is feeling really alone. That, is like, how do I handle this situation? I'm in a public situation. My kid is hurting. The child is disrupting, and if adults don't help me, like can feel really alone there. And every parent brings a whole different set of baggage to that issue, right? And so what I love about your response is that it addresses all of those, right? So that the parent feels not alone, look, like was Nate was saying, just looking the parent in the eye, and it's like, I've got you, we can get through this together, and I am acknowledging that this is painful for your child and this is painful for you, but you're not alone in this, and what your child is experiencing and what you're experiencing right now is a really normative experience. If it wasn't your child, it would be another kid. So no, nothing is unusual here, right? It's just happening to you right now, and we're not going to let you go through this alone. And and also that feeling of ease, because people have your back. These professionals who care for your child are equally caring for you, but it's just like, by my caring for this child, I am telling you, this child will be okay, right? The pain that you're experiencing for your child right now, and if it's your first child, it could be like a totally new thing to you. Or if it's your second child and this kid is temperament-wise is very different than the other child, whatever, right? And so it's just like, through my air of confidence, and Abby, I loved what you said, it is just like there's a partnership where the parent can just feel calmer for themselves, for the situation, and that their child's going to be okay. And then at the same time is like that gentle modeling of how you establish those boundaries in these situations, but yet boundaries with some change, right? Like you were saying, with the amount of time. If this is something that does go on for a period of time, there's a way to address that. And then also the last thing I'll just observe that I also really like about this is the combination of the partnership with the people in the early childhood room, right? That there is a team of people so that you're not there by yourself as the parenting educator also dealing with all this. But you know what? The people in the early childhood room, they'll call us when you need to be there, right? Like, this is not just me by myself with you and the other parents. Like, there's a whole team of us. So bravo, you guys. This is, it's amazing.
I'll have one more comment, because I don't think any of us said this, but our kiddos go back and forth to and from ECFE with a bucket. So then they have like a sand bucket. But they have, they can take things to and from ECFE with them. So if they have a wet project, they can put it in their bucket and away they go. But a lot of times they will put in their sippy cup or a lovey. So with the separation, they can bring a lovey or like a little stuffy, or we've had unique things that kids were attached to, and what we say is that's fantastic, or a photo or whatever it is. And we also, right away from the start, we also really orient them toward the picture schedule that we go through every single day. We call the schedule, the words that we use kind of interchangeably, the plan. What is our plan, or what is our schedule? So the teacher is always showing the picture schedule so that the parents can understand it too. That, okay, here we are. Now, this is where we say, see you later to moms, dads, grandmas, aunties, and uncles, or whatever. And then we show them what's next before the parents come back. And so when the kids get upset, when someone, mommy, or something like that, we're able to say, oh, you are asking for your mommy. Let me come on, let me show you when mom comes back. We're going to do this and this. This is where mommy comes back. And so that is a practice that's embedded with those conversations too, for the kids that will look at that picture schedule. And a lot of times they'll even go and get a piece to the schedule and hand it to the children's teacher. And it's the sweetest thing. It's the saddest thing. Like, they'll hand them the picture of the parents coming back and say, yes, you're right. And I'm glad that you know that they're coming back, because they always do. But it's powerful when they understand that, and they can use that sense of anticipation to know, like, the same every time I come here, and here is when they come back.
So Nikki, while you're talking, I recall that one of your other strategy I really liked, for separation was, they took pictures of the child with the teacher, right, and with other peers during their playtime, and they gave the picture to the parents. So during the week, the parents would review the pictures, review the memory with the child, say, hey, do you remember your new friend? Do you remember your teacher? And that could be very helpful. I really like that strategy.
So
Thank
Abby,
you. This is
are
so
you-
amazing. Thank you. Such good ideas.
Fabulous. And Jennifer, you also, no, somebody else was saying that, like, separation hadn't been a thing, but now it is. Was it you, Jennifer? Somebody, or somebody? Oh, I guess
Kelly was saying that.
maybe it was Kelly. Okay, yeah.
Another, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Just another thought. I feel like, this, like Kelly is talking about, a parent development, right? I feel like really the parents' readiness for separation is a foundation. I feel that is something we can, as parent educators, we can work with the parents to help them, because unconsciously, many of the parents, they might want their children to be attached to them, not wanting separation, right? So, and I feel that parent readiness is very important. And if they are ready and they confident, and so during the week, they start to encourage the children by showing the picture and review the memories, I think that can be helpful.
Yeah.
You're muted, Susan.
Thank you. Another feature of social learning is that gentle modeling that takes place. So it's nothing that you're going in to learn, but you observe, right? And especially when you're with other people who are similar to you in some way. And so in this case, parents of young children. And, so I always marvel at those experienced parents that, I would do like interviews with parents, and they'd have the, kids from ECFE would be in their room with them. And, and the kids would just like hop off their lap and go running and bam, hit the wall. It would fall or something like that. And I'm like thinking, and the parent would be so calm, and they go, oh, he's fine. He'll just stand, and sure enough, the kid would like shake it off, and that kind of thing. So I think there is also that social component of learning in those situations where children are screaming or crying or something like that, where parents also can learn some self-regulation and moderation by seeing how other parents respond if their children are crying, right? That, I don't have to rush. They'll be fine, right? And that kind of thing. So, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Susan, sorry, I just inspired by what you said. I recalled, many young, little child, when they fall, maybe 1 year old, they start to learn how to run and walk, right? So when they fall, they would look at the caregivers. So
Yep.
see, what the caregiver's facial and response, and to decide to cry or not. Right. So thank you. I just, so loud your
yeah, I know there's research where they'll do that with kids being in different situations and looking up and based on how the parents respond. So, well, we want to welcome Linda. Hi, Linda. We're finishing up talking about separation. I want to, are we good with this? I want to address a couple other things that came up in our initial questions. So Abby, you're feeling teensy bit more confident here? Okay, good. So let's do quick on the ECFE budget because I got nothing. My only thought was, so Linda, the question was about the ECF, how the sort of the stability of the ECFE budget statewide. The one thought I had, and this is going to do a little hunting on my part, is that big whopping amount of money that Walls is giving to education, like what portion of that is going to early childhood? And I know he's a big proponent of that. And then more specifically, what might be going to ECFE. So that's all that I know. Anyone else?
I don't know anything, but I think I always get on here as like the voice of advocacy, because I think we all, if you're feeling empowered to do so, it would be advantageous for us to individually write our legislators, our senators, everybody, representatives, Governor Walls, because we do have earmarked money, hoping, right, to ECFE staff want 2 more full-time positions at MDE to support obviously the work that Mike Brown is doing at like a 0.3 year, he's a full-time person with very little time to really give to ECFE. And we know that we're hoping for 2 more positions, but I don't know if any of our representatives, our senators, I don't know if Governor Walls knows how important it is to us that we get that funding. And I think without those positions and leadership at the top, I think we're going to continue to see some of the trends that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very interested in this topic, Jennifer. So I remember, I did conduct my research. So I had a lot, kind of gathered data on this. I remember the kind of the fees, the money came from is like 150 something per child, like birth by birth, right, in each district. And then besides that, some districts, for example, St. Paul, they have local money, levy money to match that, like almost the same amount of money. And first of all, I wonder if I think I think I wonder maybe not every district has that levy money, local money to match that. If they don't have that, is that money from the state alone be enough to sustain ECFE? And that is one of my question. And another is I saw like historically Minnesota ECFE. I mean, we try to apply for federal grants, but I mean, in the beginning, 1976, I remember, but we didn't get it at that time. And I wonder if there's any like later on, did we try that again? And why can't we get federal grants? And what right now there are so much money, like for early childhood education. So I wonder why, if we don't have from federal grant, why? That were two of my questions.
And to
You
piggyback on
muted,
what,
Susie.
Yes, you'd think I would just start talking and my computer would unmute. So I was just going to say, usually by the resounding response, I think that it's a very hard question that you're asking, a very complicated question. And I don't know that any of us here are the ones to answer it for you. What I would suggest is, I know that Susan Shorey and Heather Klein have been working on the policy piece of things with MNAFI. And yeah, so I would encourage you to reach out to them or go to MNAFI and just look up whatever their policy information, whatever they might have, because I think you'll get contact info there. But I think that the budget implications from what little I know, right, from the state are so complicated. And there are many different ways that budgeting is done in the district level. There's a certain amount of what is mandated per family by the state, right? But then specific allocations and resources and that sort of thing per district can vary greatly. So as you can see with different numbers of positions and numbers of classes and programs and things like that. So yeah. I do, so sorry, Jennifer, don't have a lot there, but this is a, TBD topic that we'll continue to stay with and report on.
Thank you. Is there a way of knowing kind of what enrollments look like now compared to, over time, like, how many districts are offering classes and kind of what is the participation in those classes?
My guess is that that's the kind of data that would be or could be available by MDE based on numbers that are reported at the district level and then aggregated and then reported out. Now, because it's community ed, for the most part, because not all districts are that way, I think it starts getting a little bit fuzzy because I think sometimes numbers will vary depending on the availability of those numbers, right? So that, and again, I'm just shooting from the hip here, but based on what I've understood. So if it was a traditional like pre-K 12 class, I think those numbers might be a little bit more solid because it's in the same bucket in every district around about teaching or about, providing instruction. Whereas with ECFE, there may be a little bit more fuzziness in that data of reporting, and then where does that reporting, and then the quality of the reporting instrument, of course, but then who does that go to? Mike Brown? Is he responsible for that? Or is there another data person at MDE who does that? So I think that that's also a really, really good question to just have kind of nailed down. My guess is like in the years when Betty and Lois were there and you had 2 full-time staff positions, that would have been, call to Betty Cook to just say, Betty, do you have the most recent data about enrollments in ECFE for, 2005 to 2010, and that could be reported. Or that there would be something online that you could do that search for yourself as a taxpayer, right? If you were interested in enrollment for ECFE, but I don't know. I don't know the quality of that data and that accessibility of that data at this point. Anyone else?
Avisha Whiteman can give us those numbers, I believe. She works with the long-term, the student data. Help me out. What is the long word for it? But the student data reporting, whatever.
Okay.
But she's got all those numbers, and actually you can look it up by district to see what that looks like.
And they're
Yeah.
current.
I think so. Yeah. It's a current thing
Okay.
because all of our districts have to report. Avisha Whiteman.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. Because obviously, if it's enrollment dwindling kind of issue, then that impacts, our strategy for kind of outreach and awareness. And if it's, but if enrollment's there and it's funding, then that's a different tack.
Right. Yeah. So if anybody would like to do homework on this and bring at least the link of like accessible data, like how we can access that data for anybody, that'd be great. And Cinnamon, I am not going to leave you hanging. I know that you had your question, and in our remaining 10 minutes, I want to throw it out there. Maybe we can do like a popcorn kind of thing. But so Cinnamon had, just to paraphrase, had asked at the beginning, they're going to revamp their curriculum. And so she was interested in, ideas, topics, kind of newer things that you guys have been doing that have been successful with parents. Anything to add there, Cinnamon?
No, we're just kind of looking, we had some big change, just because of COVID and stuff. So, and for me, I feel like it's been the same classes, some of the same parents, which is not a bad thing. But then it's trying to come up with new topics, or do I do a book study, or like, what do we offer instead? Like, can we offer different things that more parents could be involved in? And would they come if we offered more nights, or would they not? So we're looking at all these ideas, hashing them out, trying to figure out what's the best. And so that's kind of what we're looking at now, is just to see what we could try this next year to get more people involved and back in after COVID and all that. So that's what we're kind of looking at right now.
Yeah.
I have to jump off in just a moment, so I'll have to log into the recording to see what others' thoughts were. But you'd mentioned evenings, and that's one that I think historically, we used to have just, blockbuster signups for our evening class. And this past fall, and it was basically nothing. And so those teachers in that class kind of went back to square one. And thought about it for this second part of the school year. Got the cute title of Eat, Play, Learn. And they shifted it earlier. They were wondering whether, go until 7 or 7:30 is just, too late for these families with littles. And they serve pizza every time. It's a little shorter, it's a little condensed. It's non-separating, because I think they were also getting some feedback that, like, a lot of these working families, they've been away from their kiddo all day and they kind of don't want to come and then separate again. And that's had really good traction. Just we started it since the holidays, and we've got a lot of families. So, giving them something to eat as a draw, and but really, yeah, we're kind of in the same place, and I'm trying to think differently about some of the things that, like, historically they always win, and now they're not.
I love that title, Jen. It's cute.
Thank you. That was great.
Jen, can you repeat the title of the class?
Eat, play, learn.
Oh, that's
Our coordinator is really savvy with titles, and so that's that was one of her brainchilds.
And do you charge for the class, or is the pizza
It's the
included?
typical sliding scale sign up for ECFE, and again, our coordinator kind of looked into the budgets. It's just like pizza's cheap. We've got money for pizza, so we're offering that.
We struggle in our district having educators willing to work in the evening. And we're going from 2 evenings a week to 1 evening a week next year. And not offering that 5:45 to 7:15 class where it's late, but families that work, it's the only thing that works for them. So I'm really sad we're going to be taking that away from families and that opportunity, but it's the way it is. That's all I have to add.
Yeah, we have noticed that too. Our evening class has a waiting list and we only do 1 evening a week. But yeah, it's so hard because like I have my 3 littles at home. So if I do another night of ECFE, I'm missing out on that time with my own kiddos. And so we've tried, like we'll offer another evening class, like more of like a pop-up class once a month. From 5 to 6, because then that gives families another option, but it's not weekly. And that's been good too. Trying to think, we've done a ton of like outreach. I use Facebook a lot and then just Canva and try to update families as much. We have a brochure. I don't know if you guys, we didn't have a brochure last year. They tried to get rid of that and we saw a big decrease in sign up. So we advocated for that to come back this year and we've noticed a big difference. We also have a program called SOS in our district. And so there's a team, 2 ladies that go out to like our turkey plant here and well, Jenny O, if you guys are familiar with that. We have a big, just like some of the bigger areas where there's a lot of parents working and they'll catch them on the lunch hour or, like the common break times or shift changes, and just like flood them with handouts and different things. So we were trying to do different things to get families here, and especially like the ones that, Cinnamon, like you said, it's a lot of the same families over and over again. So how can we get different people in the door kind of thing?
Anybody did like, I know this is hard because we don't want to give our family time up, but like a Saturday, we try to Saturday things or like maybe afternoon right before that dinner time.
Yeah, we've done that. It's always went well. It's just, yeah, giving up that time. But we've done like a couple super Saturdays. So we'll just have like a morning ECFE time and we have a gym space. So we let families utilize that. We've done a lot of social emotional nights. So families can learn and we've had them build like a calm down kit all together, and talked about like different ways to manage some of the things that a lot of kiddos are going through after COVID. We've tried to like think of things that families need that they wouldn't get somewhere else. And I feel like that's gotten more people here too.
Do you all use your parent advisory councils for idea generation like this?
I am just going to begin to be a part of the advisory council. and be joining their meetings. I've never been in the past. So I think that they've had input about things, but I've never heard it. I've only heard it as it's come to me. They asked for outdoor class, we offered outdoor class or nature-based class. They've asked for yoga, we offered yoga. So we do respond to their requests. I've just never been a part of that process.
Cinnamon, does your district have an active parent advisory council?
No, unfortunately, we haven't had one since before COVID.
Yeah.
And so I, like, normally at the end of the year, I usually send out a survey just seeing what parents want, what they learned in the class, do they want something different? And we try to accommodate as much as we can. But then, like Linda was saying, like, they want this, but then maybe they don't show up. And so it's like, well, do we try it again? Or do we just let it go and see if another group says we want yoga or whatever it is, you know? And so it's, yeah. And we're in such a small district too. And so it's hard to offer a whole bunch of stuff and then nobody shows up. And then I'm really the only parent educator in the district. So I can't be in 3 spots. And yeah, it's just, we're just trying to figure out new strategies, new ways to get people in. So.
One of our more popular classes with probably over 100 registrations, but actually it's a drop-in class called Family Playtime on Fridays during this time. Today, we're not offering it, so I could come to the meeting. It's 11 to 1. They bring a lunch and we transition from a small playroom to the outdoors or directly to lunchroom and then to the gym space. And then we have a quiet, calm down time with music and songs. And we end with Lori Berkner's reading song and reading books. It's very popular. We have 20, 25 people almost every week. And it's $5 per time, charged by signing up in their account. They'll pay for it at the end of the month. So there's something. Our free classes end up being 1 or 2 or 3 families. They don't come if they don't have to pay anything. They register and then don't show up.
There's no consequence, even a small psychological, there's like old research about, you can send out a survey, but if you send out a survey like with a $1 bill, people are more likely to do it. Or for classes, if you offer something for free, people will say, yeah, I'll do it, but there's no consequence, right? Because I'm not paying for it anyway, right? And they're not thinking about people's time or whatever. So Lori, to end this, a question that I would have is, how do you market that? So if Cinnamon wants to try this idea, right? How would families know about this wonderful Friday 2-hour $5 thing?
If you're asking me, we have it in our catalog. It's a class that they can register for each year, and it's a rolling enrollment. You can join anytime. We never know who's going to show up. If all 100 showed up, we'd be in big trouble because there isn't enough space in any of our rooms for that. It really was generated out of this open time where 3 teachers, we didn't have enrollment in a class. And we said, what can we do with our time and the rooms that we have available to us? Let's try this. And it evolved into teaching families about transitions because we couldn't stay in one room for 2 whole hours with these little bugs. So let's teach them how to move around and go from one place to the next. It's over lunch. We'll teach them about feeding their children just by modeling and saying, here are our guidelines, never walking around, and all the rules that you have to have around sitting at a table in a group. And eating is optional. We also have the gym open. If their child is a fast eater and can't sit there very long, we just ask them to try it and then move to the gym. And how we market it is either through our Facebook page, in our catalog annually now, and then which is available online. And occasionally, let's say our attendance dropped really low, we could do a monthly news blast. Don't forget about family playtime kind of thing.
Cool.
Which I'm not responsible for. Somebody else does that.
What? You're doing everything else?
No, I don't, in my district, I don't have to do everything else. Whoop, we're such a large district that we have assigned duties. I mean, we only have 2.5 parent educators. So there's not a lot of parent educators, but there's a lot of other people doing different things.
Thank you, Linda. Good. Well, Cinnamon, hopefully that gave you a few ideas. I think that's like a perennial topic we could talk about every week, is just sharing, like maybe if it's just like successful ideas. What have been successful ideas? Like, let's just go right to it. What works, so good. Well, I see that we are over time, or at our time. Thank you, everybody. What a wonderful conversation. Thank you all for being here. And Carrie did note that there is going to be a video recording, I guess, accessible from the Allison Institute for her training. So please do go and view that as well.
I think you get the link to that if you pay for it. So I actually paid for it, and I'm going to look at it later.
Good.
Because it's being recorded.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very reasonable, in 2 hours. So good. I'm glad that you're doing that, Linda. Well, thank you, everybody. And we will all see you next week. Yeah.